how we can deal with third-party libraries. Like we have a library called Axios. So by using these third-party libraries, we can handle and configure the applications. So consuming API. So these third-party libraries are more flexible. They are more easy. They are more faster in communication. So that is the reason usually people have to work with these third-party libraries, dealing and working with the third-party libraries. So what we will do now is we will see how we can implement a complete end-to-end integration with third-party libraries in our React application. Now, what we have done is we are using and we are creating a React application, and we are integrating into existing project. But today we will see how to create a separate React project and separate React application. In that React application, we will try to interact with the data. That means now we are going to learn how to create a separate React application and deal with it. So let's see the basic steps, how we can deal with it. That means what we are going to learn today is client side and server side. One simple basic here. We are going to have database in MongoDB. So we are going to have database in MongoDB, and the database is in MongoDB. And server side, we will use Node.js with Express. So Node.js and Express server side to create API. Already we done this, no need to learn again. We already done. So server side, we will create an API here, which will communicate with the database, get the data from the database. And client side, what we will do now is the client side. So we will create here client side. We will create a separate React application. We will create a React application, React app. This React application will communicate with server side application and get the data and interact with the data. Now all these days what I showed you is how to use React, how to use that React in an existing project. That means in just a HTML file, we are borrowing all these. We are borrowing all this from CDN, and we are using them in our project. Only in this page we are doing. That means everything we are designing from CDN and integrating. So all these days what we learned is not a separate React application. We have learned how to use React application in existing project, like .NET people, Java people, Python people, or PHP people. All these people have to use React.js integration inside like this by integrating the CDNs and all. Suppose in real world project, you want a separate React application. That React application should interact with the server side. Then we have to learn how to create a separate React application. let's see how to create a separate React application. For that, what are the points? See, to create a separate React application, what you need to do is first, that means we are learning creating a new React application. Already in introduction I showed you, one more time I'm showing here because we will see that now. To create a React, so npm install, you have to install globally a tool called create React app. You have to install create React app. That means go to your command prompt and here you have to install a separate React application. That means here we have to install npm install -g create React app. You have to install this tool. After installing this tool, already it is installed in my computer. After installing the tool, now next step, so that is the first point. So first point, install React app, create React app. After installing that, now create a workspace for project. Create a workspace for project. To keep your project, you need to create a workspace. Workspace is nothing but a workspace contains collection of several projects. So what you do is go to your project, any location. So I will create a new folder in my C drive. I am creating a new folder. I will give as 9am React app. So 9am React app, that is the folder. Okay, open that here. That means file, open the folder. So in the C drive, so we have 9am React app. That is the project location. This is our workspace. So this is the workspace. Now in this workspace, we need to create a React application. So first, what we have to do is to create a React application. We need to run the command, open the terminal. In the terminal, you have to run the command. So create a React app. And what is the app name? App name I will give as some shopping. That means we are creating a React application called shopping. Enter. That means it is creating a new application for you. And you can see that it is saying that you have some older version of create React app. Now new version of create React app is available. Do you want to use? You have to use that. So let's do one thing first. So npm install -g create React app. That is the tool we will install. That means some advanced version is available now. It is saying that your computer is still using an older version. Okay, we will update that. Okay, done. It is 4.0.3. Now you create a React application. So create React app and application name. Suppose shopping is the application name. We are creating a React application. Then automatically it will download and install all the library required for your React application. Whatever the library required for React application, it will download and install all the library for you. So once the library installs everything for you, already I showed you that it will create some folders and files. we need to work with that environment now. We need to work with the environment. So that means we are creating a separate React application. For that, so we have to first install, create a workspace project. Then workspace for project is nothing but some, I given the name as 9 a.m. and React application. Then what you have to do, open in Visual Studio Code and change to open the terminal and run the command, run the following command. What is the command you have to run is React app, create React app, and the name of the application, some shopping. This will create a React application for you. So previously we learned how to use, what is advantage of this is, now here all libraries are downloaded. So you don't need any CDN. So what you have to do is you have to import library. You have to import library and use in application. So you have to import the library, like you have to use import. So you have to import React from React library. That is how we need to do. So we need to import the libraries that we want and we can use in our project. So this is the basic approach you need to follow. So this is the good environment for working with your React application. It will take a while for downloading and installing the entire project for you. So now what we will do is, our project will be ready. First, here we will see how to use the third-party library in this project to consume the API. Server-side API is already ready. So we have to use that server-side API and interact with that in React application. So for that, today we will see a third party called library called Axios. After creating the application, to start your project, that will come, I will show you. npm start, you have to run your command npm start. It will start your project. Automatically it will start the project with index page. Now your project is ready. So, and it is running. Now we need to consume a server-side API. For that we are using Axios. Actually, what is the difference? I mean, in interviews, the question asked is, what is difference between fetch and Axios? There are several other libraries also used. So one of the advantages is, what is difference is, answer is nothing but, actually fetch method requires JSON parsing. That means you have to convert data into JSON. And Axios is default data format is JSON. It is by default JSON. And another advantage is, that means these are all differences actually. Another advantage about Axios is, Axios uses async and await for handling asynchronous requests. So that means it is more faster, more faster, more faster. Another important is Axios. Actually, Axios is more secure, more secure. So that means actually Axios provides built-in security for XSS and XSRF. XSRF. So what XSS and XSRF? Actually, XSS is nothing but we call cross-site scripting attack, cross-site scripting attacks, and cross-site request forgery. So cross-site request forgery. That is general. These two are security related issues, and very important is it has built-in support. It has built-in support for security. Cross-site scripting attack means somebody is trying to write queries and hack your application. That means, for example, you give a text box. Suppose you give a text box. In the text box, you ask to enter name, but he is entering the name in this way: B. John. This is cross-site scripting attack. This is called cross-site scripting attack. That means I asked him to just type his name, but he is trying to type some query. That query may affect the application. So if he continues that queries, if we allow such queries, we call them as cross-site scripting attacks, right? So we have to prevent such attacks because users generally, people hack your application with this kind of querying only. And request forgery is nothing but anybody can copy your website URL. That means suppose you are visiting some URL. So some website URL is present. Anybody, what they can do is they can copy that website URL. So that means you go to the categories and access them, something like this. You see, this is the URL. Anybody can copy this URL, and what they can do is after copying the URL, they can use that URL in their website, and from there they can post data into this website. Actually, data must be posted only from the application where it is designed. Application. We call this mechanism as request forgery. We call that as request forgery. As a web developer, we have to prevent these two things very regularly: cross-site scripting attacks and request forgery. That is the reason. So if you are using fetch and jQuery, then they don't have this. We have to explicitly design. So that is the reason developers will use third-party libraries so that it is easy, because they have inbuilt security. That is very good. Because of inbuilt security, they can easily handle. Right. Now that is generally how we can manage. Now let's see how to use this Axios in our project. And how to work with Axios in our project. Let's see. Axios, you need to install this library in your project. So once your project is ready, the project is ready now. Once the project is ready, change to that shopping location. That means CD shopping, and you have to run the command npm start. When you run the command npm start, it will start your project. And in this project, all the libraries are ready. So we have to just import the library and we have to use the library. So it is started, and our project automatically opens in a browser, and it will show the result. So that means your React.js application is separately designed. What is difference between previous and now is, previously we were using React.js in existing project, but now we are using a separate React.js application. So this is separate React.js application. Now we have to design our own screen and present our own screen. That we can do now. Now you can see that in this React application, you can see ready-made folders are present. So already we were working with same type of folders only. Okay. So SRC contains all the source files here. Now in SRC, I will create, remember, generally your application starts with index.js. In index.js, all the libraries added. You have to just define which component you want to start. You have to just define which component. By default, it is starting with app component. You can create your own component and you can start with the component. Let's do that now. So first step is we will create our own component in SRC folder. So go to SRC folder and add a new file, product component. Okay, .js. We are creating a separate JavaScript file. Okay. Here, I want to write the logic to consume the API coming from some server side API. So then to consume server side API, you need a special library. Install that library in our project. So how to install the library in the project? So what you have to do is open the terminal and you need to install a new library into the project. So cd shopping, okay, here npm install. We need a library called Axios. You have to install that Axios and --save. So you are downloading and installing that Axios library. Okay. We are downloading and installing Axios library here. Once the Axios library is ready, we can use this library for consuming the API. Okay, Axios library is ready. Done. Once the Axios library is ready, we have to use that for consuming the API. So first we have to import. So import React from React library. Okay. Next we have to import Axios from Axios library. These two are required. Earlier we have to search for its CDN, copy the CDN and use the CDN in our project. But now we can already have the library offline. We have to just import. Okay, let's create a component. So you can create a class component or any type of component you can create. So I am creating component, export default and component is product component. This extends React component. It extends React component. Okay. Now you know the meanings of this. So export, what is the purpose of export? Export means, what do you say? What is the purpose of export? Export means, why we have to write export? Export means it is accessible outside the file. Yeah, it is accessible outside the file. Understood? Outside that file. Yeah. What is default? Default indicates that it is only the class which is exported from this file. Understood? It is only the class which is exported from file. If there are many classes, then you should not use default. So if there is only one class and that is the class which need to be exported, then we mark it as default. Okay. Now, next step here, we will create a constructor. And in that we define a state. This dot state is equal to state have a products. Products is an array because we are expecting array. Okay. Next step. So we need a life cycle method called component did mount. Component did mount. That means when the component is loaded. When the component is loaded, I want Axios to connect with our API, get the data from API. It's very simple now. We can use Axios.get method. By using get method, so we can get from the URL. So http://127.0.0.1:8080/get products, from where we have to get the data. After that, Axios uses then method. Then method so uses a response. So a response. This response means it uses a callback function. That callback function uses a response object. That response object contains the data. So what you have to do is this dot, actually how to write means for your clean understanding sake. Then uses a callback function. In the callback function, it will have a response which will get the response data. This response data we have to set into state. Response have data which you need to set into state. In a shorthand way, how you write, you have to just write response and implies, and this response should return. So this dot set state into the state. We have to put products. The data for products is coming from response.data. It will send the data into that. This is easy technique of Axios. Now ready, that's it. That means Axios is making a request from your API. It is accessing the data and it is displaying that, storing the data in products. We have to present it. You know how to present it. That means we need a render method. So we need a render method. This render method have to return. So what it should return? I will create a div. It should return product details. And here we want to create a table. So table. So we will define table width is some 400 and table border is equal to 1. In the table we have T head. So and we have TR and TH, that is having product ID, and that is having a name and having the price. So the price, and I want to display in the table body, T body, we want to render, then we will use an expression here. All rest of presentation is same. That means we need to generate a row for presenting the data. So this dot state dot products use a map method. This map method should access every product and it should return the product. And it should generate a row and return the row. That map method have to return the row. It should return a row. That row usually contains, so you already know it should contain a key. And key is coming from product ID. and in that we need cell. In the cell we want to display, so product dot product ID, and in the next cell we want to display product dot name, and in the next cell we want to display product dot price. Okay, that's it. That is the data generated and configured here. So that means everything is ready. Now important is this is the component. This is the component. Now this is the product component, and this product component we have to use. This product component we have to use. Then generally what you need to do here is to use this product component in your application. So let's go to index page, index.js. Index.js, here we have to use that product component. First import it. That means we have to import. So product component from the dot slash. So product component, from the product component we have to import it. That means we have to import the product component from that location we have to import. And we have to use this product component as the startup component. That means we are using the product component, and we will keep that to render in the page. Now you can see that. So the product component have to get the data and display the data here. It is there. The presentation is there, but data is not coming. Reasons will be so many. Why data is not coming? Because this time actually API not started. We have to start the API because API is not started. Obviously that is the reason. So you can see in the console it shows a message, connection refused. That means API is not started. So what we will do now, we will start the API. API is not present here. API is present in yesterday's server side location. So then we will go to the yesterday's server side location, and here we will start the API. You see server, and open that terminal, cd server, and in that we have to use node api.js. You can keep in your same project again, or I will simply server started. Once the server started, now you refresh and see here the data is coming. That means it is working fine. It is accessing the data and is displaying the data. So this time we are using the communication with API. React.js is communicating with the API. So by using a third-party library called Axios, we are using Axios library for handling it. Now, how to post the data? This is to get the data. How do we post the data? That means data is coming fine. How we can send the data? But important is to post the data. So server side, we need to create the API that can accept the data and interact with the data. I will stop it. Now go to api.js. In api.js, you have only the method written for get products. We need to write the method for posting the data also. Method for posting the data. So how we can write the method for posting the data? So to write method for posting the data, so what you have to do is, so we need to write the post related API. So that means we need to write the logic which can accept the data and submit the data into database. So how do we do? In the app, it is there. We have to write another Already I showed you in server side app.post. What is the path? So I am expecting the path as add products, add product. Okay, it is using a callback function. This callback function will use a request and a response. Now here I need to connect with the database and insert a record. Actually, the data we will send from our forms. From the form, we will post the data. The data must be collected and used in this location to insert into database. So what we are doing now here is we are writing Mongo client. So we are writing here Mongo client dot connect with URL and uses a callback function. This callback function will use an and client object. And if there is no error, and then we have to use the client object. So where database object is equal to client object.db, which database? I want to use the database, some Amazon DB. That is the database I want to use, Amazon DB. Okay. Into the database, so we need to insert a record. So we need to create a data object here. This data object contains product ID, which comes from request body. Already I told you in APIs. So from product ID. Then name comes from request body, that is from name field. And price comes from request.body. So price, that means it will come from a remote form that is present in your React.js. And what it has to do is insert this data into database, dbo.collection, table name, tbl products dot insert one to insert a record. Already we know MongoDB here, data, and insert the data, and a function will come. So this callback function will return error and it will return result. If there is no error, if not error, so then console.log, it will display record inserted message will come. That's how we need to configure. Is a problem, it should report the problem, else console.log, it will report that problem, whatever problem is there. This is the API method which is ready for accessing the data and inserting the data into database. The API method which is ready to accept the data and insert the data into database. So insert the data into database. That is the basic approach we need to follow. Now how we can manage this and how we can handle that here. So let's see. That means API is ready and you start your API. So your API is ready for accepting the data and inserting the data. Start the API now. So then node API.js, it is started. So it is working fine. It is started. Okay. Once the API is started, once the API is configured and API is started, next step, what you have to do is in the React application, we need to design a form. From there, we need to submit the data. So API is started. From the React application, we need to submit the data. So that means how we can handle and submit the data from React application, how we can manage the data from the React application. So how do you post the data? Generally, for posting the data, so we can use different libraries for configuring and posting the data. A general approach we will see. That means first step is design a form. That form should collect all the details and submit the details to your API. So let's create. Axios should post it. First, we will create a form here. Already product details are there. And here I will add another option here. So what is the option? I will keep as add new product. Let's create a form here. So we will create a form. So that means we are designing. We are designing a simple. So form. We are designing a form. Okay. On submit of form, we need to collect all the data and push. Now we need to first design inside the form. We will create a div, and in that we will create a data list and a data term, first name and data definition. So here text box. So this text box should have like, so this is ID suppose. This text box should be binded with the ID. So then input type is equal to text. Okay, so that is text. Now whatever modification happened inside this, I need to identify that and collect it. We will do that. So what I will do now here is I am writing so on change, or we have to write on change for all of them. Let's see. Another we will design, that is a data term, that is name, and the data definition input type is equal to text. Okay, we will bind with events also. Another data term is price, and the data definition input type is equal to text. Okay, all the three fields are ready. Now we done inside the form, we need a button, and this button is nothing but add product. So add product button will be there. Now what should happen is every change in the name, price or values, those change must be collected first. The changes that you are doing, they must be collected here. Then what we do is to identify the changes happening. So we need to collect the changes happening, and we need to handle the changes. So what we are doing currently, first option is here we are creating three options, three events separately. What are those three events? First event is, so ID changed, ID changed. So event, it is a function. It is a function. And what functionality it should do? When ID changed, it has to set the data. That means we need to set the data and configure the data. That means actually now in the state, we need data. We are expecting data. It is an object with product ID initially 0 and the name that is string and the price that is also 0. We are expecting the data. We are expecting the data. On change, what we have to do, this dot set state. So into data, we need to send the dates. And what should be the product ID? So product ID. Product ID will be, so from the event, so target dot value. So that event target dot value. That means whatever the value you entered in the text box, that value will come. So that means it will get the value and it will display. And other values, this is on ID change. Later I will tell you another technique also. So we have name. When name we have to get from this dot state dot, so data dot name. We have to get from state, because name is not modified here. Currently we are only verifying ID change. So and another price is also coming from, so this dot state dot data dot price. Okay, that is the detail. Similarly, we need to write three events now. We need to write three events. So I will copy that. Second one is, so name change. on name changed, product ID will come from this dot state dot product data dot product ID, and name come from target. That means event dot target dot value, and the price is same. So price is also coming from state only. So right. Similarly, another event we have to write for price change. I will show you shortcut technique also. Price change. On price changed, so product ID will be this dot state dot data dot product ID. Only price is coming from event. That means event dot data event dot target dot value. That means when price changed, price value will be collected. When name changed, name value will be collected. When ID changed, ID value will be collected. All the three events are collecting three different values. Okay. These three events are using state. If the three events are using state, you have to register them here. So this dot one is ID change is equal to this dot ID change dot bind to this. This dot name changed is equal to this dot name changed dot bind to this. All are using the state, so you have to use that. This dot price changed is equal to this dot price changed dot bind of this. It have to work with all this. Right. Now these are the options we are configuring. Now all the data is collected. On submit, we have to send this data into API. That means now we have to write another event. So what is the event we need to write now? The event is to get the data and submit the data. So that means what the event you need to write now. So the event we have to write here is nothing but simply, so submit click. Remember, these all events must be binded with text boxes. That means this text box on change, it binds with this dot ID change, and this on change, it will bind with this dot name change, and this on change, this will bind with this dot price change. Okay, all they are binded. Now on submit also we need a functionality to happen. On submit also we need to define a functionality to happen. Then how we can handle the submit functionality now? So on submit functionality, what we have to do is we have to write the submit click. I need to send this to the API. That means we need to write an event now. So what is that event? So the event is the submit click event. We need to configure the submit click event. So after defining all the change options, so we have submit click. So submit click event, so implies it returns. What it will do is it will collect all the data. So that means, so we will create a constant called data, and this data is an object that contains product ID, and product ID is whatever the latest ID in state. This dot state dot data dot product ID. So same. So name. So this dot state dot data dot name. We are collecting everything. And price. So this dot state dot data dot price. Okay. Collect all the data that is updated and send this to API. So we have to use Axios.post method. Post into which URL? http:// so 127.0.0.1:8080/add product is the API. Add product is expecting data, then we have to pass the data. That means we need to just put a comma and we need to pass the data. What data you want to send, that's it. and we have to put some message dot then, and we put a response. So response is nothing but console.log. It will put that record inserted, or we can also send the data inserted. That means whatever data is inserted, it will show that, and we will put an alert here. That means we will put an alert here, so saying that record inserted. On submit click alert, we will put record inserted. This message will come. That means we are collecting the data from the form. We are collecting the data from the form, and we are sending the data into the database. This is the approach we have designed now. That means you have two options, get method and the post method. Now your form is ready. Now suppose this component is presenting some data. So class name, so container fluid, means if it is having some bootstrap like options. I hope there is no bootstrap. So I will do one thing. Here I will keep style. Style is equal to margin left. So some 20 pixels like this. We are configuring that. So that is a style. So we need to define style object here. I don't want any dynamic here. Directly I will keep here. So margin left. Okay. So 20 pixels, just basically. So that's defined here, and you can see it says that style is expecting the properties to configure. Margin right, margin left, how you define, because you are using JSX. In JSX, it will not allow this kind of syntax. So usually what we have to do is we need to write an expression. That means expression, in that we need to write style. We have to write in camel case like representation, like margin left. How many values? You need to define that 20 pixel. Like this we need to configure. So we need to define the style, little bit fine. Okay. Now you see how many records are there in the current page. You can see that there are 7 records in the page. Now I will add product ID 8, and I will enter the name. So the name I given as suppose, so sunglasses, and I defined the price, some price 5,000, and click on add product button. Then it will fire up the message and it should display the message. Now make sure that your API is running and handling everything, because after making the changes in your API, you have to make sure that your API is running again. And the API is running again. So after making the changes, so it is accepting the data and handling the data. Data fine. Here base source inspect in the console. Okay. So here what is that form method? API is working or not, right? And in form submit we haven't written submit click. So here we have to write on submit. On submit we have to call that submit function. This dot, so submit click. This we have to bind. Okay, fine. Then it can collect the data and it can access and use the data. So I'm entering the record 8 and the name sunglasses and the price, some price, and I defined it. Then click on add product. Then it should show an alert record inserted. So once the record is inserted, click OK. That means the record is inserted. Then it should update that record and display here. But it is unable to submit the record. So we will see in the database what the issue is. That means the method is firing up, but it is unable to submit the record. Why it is unable to submit the record? That means we will go to our database. Is that 8th record is added or not? We will see, because we have to make sure that the data is inserted into the same database that we are looking for, right? So you see the database which is fetching from Amazon DB. And one more here, Amazon DB. And request ID, name, price, sending the data successfully. Here it is showing record inserted. Here it is showing record inserted. That means the record is inserted into the database, but it is not displayed inside this UI. That means whatever record, you see that I refresh that, it is inserted and displayed. Because we are not reloading the page. If we can reload the page, then it will show the new record added into your website. Means record is inserted, just we need to refresh that and get it. Now, without refreshing also, we can display that. For that, what you have to do, you have to call the get products method again. So that means we are adding the data. Because generally what happens is when you submit, usually what happens, the submit event will fire up. And submit event actually have default mechanism of submitting the data. By default, it have the mechanism of submitting the data. In that case, what happens is default its functionality is also performed. So you entered some 9. Suppose I entered some details like some option like suppose LG mobile, and I entered some price. So some price I defined there, and click on add product, and the record is inserted. After inserted, you can see the page refresh and it gets the data. So that means default it submits and date. So previously it was unable to refresh, that's the reason it is not showing it. Now the record is inserted into it. Now it will be available in your database. So that means we are accessing the data and we are inserting the data. That means we are collecting the data from the database and we are inserting the data. This you can do with any kind of API libraries in the background. Currently, we are using the API library called Axios. By using the Axios library, we are handling the interaction. So we are reading and we are inserting into the database. So this is a complete end-to-end with React. Now, while inserting, we can set validations also. Validation means name required, price range this much. You have to understand how to set the validations for interacting with the data and working with the data. That we will see in next session. Tomorrow we will see that, right? So in tomorrow's session, we will see how to handle validations in React.js. With validations, how we can restrict submitting of data until or unless it is completely valid. That we will see in our next session. Tomorrow we'll see that, okay? All this note I uploaded, once go through that into the classroom. Whatever we discussed, everything is up, go through that. Then tomorrow we'll continue with this.